Thank you very much. I would certainly like to thank the invitation to this conference. I'd like to thank the IISS and particularly John Chipman for the effort he has made, and of course for the warm welcome that the government of Colombia has offered the President of the Republic, President Santos, their Minister of Foreign Affairs, María Ángela Holguín, and of course the Minister of Defense, Juan Carlos Pinzón, as well as the presence of each one of you. Frankly, being the last one to speak, I could just say, me too. And that would be enough. Because, of course, I can only reiterate the positions stated by María Ángela, José Antonio, and Claudio. But I would like to present a few ideas, and the first is about the context in which we act. Integration has been discussed, but the truth is that as of today, integration is a priority because it is no longer an option, it is a need. In a world of blocks that interact and have conversations among them, integration becomes essential in order to effect development policies, foreign relations policies that are efficient. It's true that some of our countries in our region, Latin America, have made progress individually, have opened up their economies, have interacted. Claudio recently pointed out, and it's true for our country as well, he pointed out the broad range of free trade agreements, economic complementation agreements, all sorts of trade agreements. In Peru, more than 80%, much like Peru, 80% of the economy in Chile enjoys agreements of this sort. But the individual effort of these states is not enough. That is why there's a need to generate agreements. Agreements between those states that share a similar vision, a similar development, and a similar potential that they can share. And in that context, the globalized world can be thought of as adversarial, it can be suspected, or it can be seen as an opportunity. Certainly, we subscribe to the latter. Looking at the process of globalization in the entire world as an opportunity that can be taken advantage of more effectively by states if they join forces with each other. And in that regard, the Pacific Alliance has been shown to have special capacities. The Pacific Alliance represents an association that is economically and politically relevant, and in this context, it is notable for its desire to become a truly regional platform. Our country has reaffirmed its commitment to the Pacific Alliance. As the Minister Holguín pointed out, there have been changes in government, in administration. But this is truly a state policy, and the foreign relations of the country, so long as they are seen as state policies, must have continuity between one administration and another. In Chile, we have taken the view that the development of the Pacific Alliance is a state policy, and that is why, once again, and this is an opportunity to reaffirm our will to work with Peru, Mexico, and Colombia along these lines for development. Having said that, I would like to mention as well that the progress made, particularly with the Marco Protocol, we have to continue making progress along the lines that the Mexican minister said. We began with the liberalization of 92% of the goods market and conversations in order to open up the service market, government purchases, telecommunications, and others. However, applying this protocol, the Framework Convention, is an immediate challenge because it is about making progress in institutionalizing this convention. And in this manner, we can hope to consolidate. And this is a presidential mandate that we have received. We must strengthen the 5 pillars of the Pacific Alliance. By coming here today and discussing with the Minister Edgardo Muñoz, who apologizes for not being here today, the movement of goods, services, capital, and people, and cooperation, we can also chalk this up to progress. We also have to make progress in the other pillars, the single windows for reducing the cost of the logistics of foreign trade, the agreement for cooperation in customs, regulatory cooperation. These are for specific areas such as cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and others. Developing joint technical standards for education and mining. Certainly, we also have to make improvements in the movement of people. And I think that what has been discussed here in terms of students and others is very significant because we're placing an emphasis on people, communities, and citizens. There are other immediate challenges. We have to go deeper in risk capital or venture capital. We have to integrate finances, tourism, tax, entrepreneurship, and others. However, we are optimistic with regards to the development of the Pacific Alliance because I believe that we share, the 4 of these countries, 3 fundamental factors. We are countries that enjoy open policies with free trade agreements. We are countries with stable democratic systems. And we have rules and investment mechanisms that are transparent for our commercial partners. Those 3 elements, I believe, lend certainty and are key. We also share challenges. Yesterday, President Santos mentioned something which is very clear. And that we have to face head-on. We are also societies with gross inequalities. We have made great efforts to take on poverty, particularly extreme poverty, but the degrees of inequality continue to be a huge challenge. And in this regard, we must take a look at what we can do to address this in terms of foreign policy. So in this context, our relationship to Asia becomes important. We must highlight not only trade and investment, but also cooperation in other significant areas such as science, technology, and innovation. in order to face global challenges such as climate change. In effect, I believe that we have developed a way of addressing these issues in conjunction. Let us take a look at the recent meeting in Peru. We thought that whatever we couldn't advance in Lima would be difficult to advance into Paris. And that is why today we face this very large challenge, because it's not just about our current generation, but about future generations. Looking towards Asia and towards the Pacific in general, but specifically Asia, I must say that what takes place in Asia and in the Asia Pacific affects us very much. The political processes that are taking place in Asia, the economic reform that are taking place in Asia, the greater or lesser dynamism of their economies, all of this is important to us, and this has been significant. When there was a crisis at the end of the 90s, the impact was noted here. Many of our countries suffered, and therefore economic cycles, the greater or lesser dynamism of their economies, security in transportation infrastructure, and the security of their main investors. All of this is important, and we must thank the interest of many of the countries of the Asia Pacific for the development of the Pacific Alliance. That figure, that capacity as observers, and their interest in being observers of the Pacific Alliance fills us with satisfaction, because it indicates trust. And it is our task as members of the Pacific Alliance to clearly define the role, the perspectives of the observer countries. And certainly, we see their contribution as very positive and satisfactory. The idea of being an observer and their interest in being observers comes from many regions of the world. Certainly, the European perspective interests us as well. But in sharing the Pacific Ocean, this is also an essential factor.
Just as what Claudia Lapuente highlighted in the case of Peru, we already have a significant relationship with the Asia region. Therefore, what we can do together with the Pacific Alliance is important, because all the experience that we have is made available to the other. And this has been done in stages, definitely since the 19th century when relations were opened. But a very important occurrence for Chile was when it entered the APEC in 1994, and having been the host country for the APEC in the year 2004, 10 years later. Therefore, what will occur with Peru as the host country of the APEC is very significant and important, and a few years later, then once again Chile receiving this meeting, because there's a very important and significant dynamic that is occurring. And of course, we look forward to the possibility of Colombia entering the APEC as a element that will complement the actions of these 4 countries that are part of this effort made in convergence. For us, the numbers are significant because Asia received 48% of our exports, more than $37 billion, and we also received imports from Asia in our country. 31% of all imports have come from Asia. And as I said, I believe that everything that we can do looking forward also looks forward to materializing a free trade area in the Asia-Pacific region. I would like to wrap up with an idea that we have been presenting, and I would like to clarify completely. It is about strengthening our commitment with the alliance, the Pacific Alliance, but we believe it is possible to develop some ties under the concept of convergence in diversity with other efforts made in integration in Latin America. And I believe specifically in the Mercosur, but being realistic about it. Convergence in diversity, because we understand that we do not agree in some subjects. So if our objective is taxes with the Mercosur, clearly it will be difficult to progress in that regard, but there are so many other subjects on which we can establish synergies: migration, physical integration, cultural issues, and I believe that we have made progress in this regard as well. There have been two important dialogues. One was here in Cartagena, another in Santiago, in the last months of 2014. So this too is something that is worth maturing, watching closely the presence of the foreign affairs ministers in Santiago and those of commerce here in Cartagena as well. I think that was important, and it has facilitated a dialogue that we can look forward to. But frankly, I believe that we have more than enough reasons to be optimistic about the development of the Pacific Alliance, and I believe this meeting will be very useful to reinforce that idea. Thank you very much.